Welcome to the Branding Room Only podcast, where we share career stories, strategies, and lessons learned on how industry leaders and influencers have built their personal brands. Now, let's get started with the show. Hi, everyone. It's Paula Edgar, your host of Branding Room Only. I am so excited because we're going to be talking today with Laurie Robinson Haden, who is the founder and CEO of Corporate Counsel Women of Color and the author of a new book called It's Time to Shine, a guide for professionals of color on how to advance their careers. And she's also an award-winning lawyer. She's also a co-founder of Parents Supporting Educational Excellence. She is all the things, and I'm happy to have her here with me today. Welcome, Laurie.
Paula, thank you so much for having me on your show today. I'm so honored to be with you, and I look forward to our robust discussion.
It certainly will be robust because we have so much to talk about because the podcast is about personal branding. It is something that drives me every single day, and I think it is the differentiating factor that everyone, you may have a similar background, but it's how you bring what you bring to the table. It's really how you shine. And so that being said, tell me, Laurie, how do you define personal brand?
Well, you know what? I like to use the example of McDonald's.
Okay.
I was driving by actually McDonald's today, and I was thinking about branding.
Mhm.
And I said, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what country you are in, whose house you're visiting. When somebody brings in that McDonald's bag, you know somebody has some McDonald's French fries. Somebody has a McDonald's cheeseburger. And when I think about the brand, a successful brand like McDonald's, which is also applicable to individuals, it's all about consistency. You know, I lived in New York City for 20 years, and one of my pet peeves when I would go to these new restaurants in Harlem is that the macaroni and cheese on Monday didn't taste like the same macaroni and cheese 2 weeks later.
Mhm.
So there was no consistency in the brand. So when you talk about a brand, it's about consistency, it's about dependability, it's about excellence.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about building your brand, those are the things that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to execute consistently with excellence. And when I think about a brand, that's what I think about.
I think that's a perfect description. Um, of course, now I'm hungry because we were talking about McDonald's. And shout out to Desiree, speaking of McDonald's. Uh, so it does. You know what to expect when somebody has a consistent, strong brand. You know what to expect because they have been consistent. So let me ask you this: if you would describe yourself in 3 words or short phrases, what would you use? What would you say?
Motivational, inspirational, and empowerment. You know, when I think about the things that I offer as a brand, that's one of the things that I know when I think about just inspiring people.
Yeah.
That is a brand. That's also a leadership style.
Mhm.
But that is one of the go-to things that I think that I am able to do consistently is inspire people. In addition to the empowerment and, there are 100 things that I think that I can do as a brand,
Mhm.
but those are like my go-to toolkits of what I offer to people.
So I will say that that is true. As someone who has been inspired by you, I think that is absolutely true. And I've seen how you have convened people in spaces because of who you are and what your brand is. That people will show up, and that's powerful. Okay, keep going. What's your favorite quote or mantra?
My favorite quote is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I've always relied on that quote because no matter where I am, my seasons, be it a summer, winter, fall, you can always tap into no matter what you're going through,
Mhm.
whether you feel inadequate, whether you don't have the skill set and you need it. You know that if you're doing it in Christ, you can do all things. So that empowers me to keep going, to know that no matter what is going on, He's got my back and that He's put inside of me every single tool that I need to be all that I need to be in that season.
I love that. And so for those of you who are not familiar with Lori, I don't know who you are, but who is not familiar with Lori who's listening to this, Lori puts together a conference every year called Corporate Counsel Women of Color, and now Men of Color, and now Entrepreneurs of Color. All of this, we're going to get into that in a minute. But this year, for the first time, and I've had the opportunity to go several times, I went to the Inspiration Breakfast. And I'm still thinking about that experience of that, and you used that same quote then. You said the same thing then, and I was like, "I wonder if she's gonna be consistent," and you were consistent in that, and also inspiring, and that was such a fantastic event. Tasha Cobb Leonard was to say I mean, I am I had never been before. After all of the ones I've been to, it's always been I've just been so tired, but I got up and
Pushed it back an hour because even the artists were like, 7 o'clock, that's too early. So I pushed it back to 9 o'clock so everyone could get up and go.
And it was, I would say, transformational. I will tell you that, and in speaking to people afterwards and since, definitely so. So, thank you for doing that, and I cannot wait for it to be in Las Vegas and see who it's gonna be. We'll talk about that later. Okay.
Paula, I'll give you a scoop. You're the first one to hear this. I haven't even posted on social media. Donnie McClurkin will be our morning inspirational artist.
My goodness. So, that I this is
Yeah,
going to
get
be
your ticket tonight. This
yeah.
thing will be sold out soon. So get your
Oh,
ticket. Don't
I
procrastinate.
I had my ticket the first day it goes on. It's already done, and all of you who have not, it's what, 65% sold out already?
70.
70%. So yes, I I'm your person. Without you knowing it, I am literally the one being like, "Have you already signed up?" Say, "No, you see, you need to be there." Yeah, no, so oh yeah, don't worry. I have my hotel. Everything is ready to go. I will be in Las Vegas, Lord willing. Okay. All right. So now that I've gotten that scoop, I'm so excited about that. Tell me if you have a favorite song that you use, a hype song. So, hype song for me is when you're walking into a room and people are going to get full 100% authentic Lori, what's playing in your head? Or if you're having a terrible day and you want to be in a better mood, what song do you play? And it could be the same song or both or different ones.
It's different songs. It depends on the day of the week. It's
Yeah.
depending on how I'm feeling. But even today, I took my son to school. I dropped him off. And when I came home, the song I was listening to, I think it all the way up on 30, where the car's shaking. I was listening to this great song. It's called Big.
Mm,
And the core lyrics
mm.
of the song Big is just like, you know what? It's going to be big. Your promotion is going to be big. Your job is going to be big. Everything that you are doing, it's going to be big. God is going to blow your mind. So
Ah,
I was just playing it. I was enjoying it. I was believing that in a new season, God was going to do a new thing in me and in our members. And I just embraced and I celebrated it big.
wow, I love it. We're gonna have to make sure that we link that. So I put together a playlist at the end of all of this so that everybody has each song from each episode is gonna be in there. So I'm gonna have to go ahead
Oh,
and
I
find it.
like that. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. All right, awesome. So we talked a little bit about CCWC, but I want you to kind of tell the audience your story. So where you started, a little bit about your career, and then what led you to building CCWC, and then we're going to then talk about what led you to write this book after that. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'll give you the Cliff Note version because I could spend an hour talking about myself, but I am a product of Prince George's County, Maryland.
Mhm.
And if you're not familiar with Prince George's County, Maryland, it's outside of DC in Northern Virginia. I was raised in Fort Washington, Maryland. And, my experience was one that, and I talk about it in the book, I was raised in a predominantly African American community. And the motto there was, it takes a village. And we had doctors, lawyers, generals. I mean, you saw everyone. And it wasn't a big deal to see successful African Americans in our lives. And they mentored us and they helped us and they encouraged us that you can do any and everything that you put your mind to. And then when it was time to go to college, I went to North Carolina Central University. a historical Black college and university where my mother went, father went, aunts. It was a family school. And again, I was not a minority. It was predominantly African American. I went on to IU at Bloomington, and the dean then, Dean Frank Motley, he was big on diversity recruiting. So even when I got to law school in Indiana, we've had a pretty strong Balsa community. I think we had over about 150 African American students. So again, you had a community, it was supportive. And really, it wasn't until I got to New York City as a lawyer,
Mhm.
fresh out of law school, and I went to my very first firm, Epstein, Becker and Green. And, they're still very supportive of me today. But that was really the first time that I was, like I said, I like to say a minority.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just felt isolated, in that I didn't feel like I had mentors. And, the good thing about that experience was, and I say in the book, this was before LinkedIn and Facebook and TikTok and Meetup. Now you can just click and go.
Yeah.
But back in that day, you had to like physically go to the location. You remember our days with pals. You
Yes.
had to meet people, you had to pass out business cards, you had to follow up.
Yep.
And what it ended up doing was it ended up pushing me out of my comfort zone. As a new associate, I would sit in my office waiting for the work to come to me. And then, at the end of the month, if I didn't have my billable hours, I'm like, what's going on? Why isn't this happening? And when I connected with the mentors, they said, you have to leave your office.
Mhm.
You have to go down the hallway. You have to knock on the door. You have to ask. You have to go to the firm social hour, which, many of us like, I don't go to firm social hour. I'm with them all day. I want to go home when I'm done. But that's where the deals get done at those informal networking sessions. So it pushed me. I went out, I met people, and it really resulted in transforming my career. I ended up getting a stronger relationship with the name partner, Ron Green of Epstein, Becker and Green. He ended up mentoring me and then connecting me with his wife, Fran Green, who is still a mentor for me today. And then I went on to CBS, and there was a small group of us meeting at that time for dinner. And at one of the dinners, I said, I'm going to put together a directory. And I said, I'm going to email you all this template with your name, your practice area, your address, your email address. I'm going to go to Office Depot. I'm going to compile this directory and I'm going to mail it all to you. So those 10 people took that directory. They each emailed it to 5 people. By the end of that week, we had identified 50 women of color who were in house. And that was big
Yeah.
because then again, like I said, there was no LinkedIn
Mhm.
and you only knew who you saw. So you would really never see more than like 10 people out at a time.
Right.
And then I printed that up, I sent it off, and then those 50 people, they're like, "Well, you forgot Paula. You
Mhm.
forgot Rhonda."
Yep.
And literally by the end of that month, we were at 100 people.
Wow.
And then it just took off. It was like a portal. A portal had been built. And people just felt isolated all across the country in their practice areas. And what was great is CCWC was able to bring everyone together so that they knew that they were not alone. Many of the lawyers were first generation lawyers who, you know what, they may not have had a mother or father who could say, okay, go in now, make sure you negotiate for this and make sure in your performance evaluation you respond to this and make sure you ask for the promotion after you've quantified all your deliverables. They didn't have that support, but they got that support at CCWC. And to your point, it transformed many people's lives and careers.
Yep. Yes. Well, I mean, I'm sitting here like, yes, exactly. Everything you just said. First of all, my parents used to always say that that there's a spark in leaders that you can't really put your finger on. You just know them when you see them. Like they just have this thing. And I believe that because I believe that some people come to it naturally. And I also believe that you can grow into a great leader as well if it doesn't come to you naturally. That being said, initiative is something that I've seen in leadership that I know that that's that spark. And you have that, like saying I'm going to go to Home Depot or Office Depot and copy these things. I'm sure many people thought about the idea of having a great directory, but it's the people who do who transform the world, right? It's the ones who take the idea and make it into action who transform the world. And so talk to me a bit about so CCWC is coming on to its 20th year.
Yes.
And at the conference this year, Sharon Bowen was talking about what it was when it first started, and she had the T-shirt, and everybody was like in tears in the audience because we were like, that is just magical that you were able to make this happen. But from your perspective, give me like two or three things, experiences that stand out for you over that time frame that really resonate for you in terms of CCWC. Anything that comes to mind.
Well, now that's a good question. Now, 20 years, I can't believe that it's been 20 years because the time has gone by so fast. But, I was actually just thinking about, CCWC today. Because sometimes, when you're in the juggle and the struggle and the day to day and just all of the work that comes with birthing something and maintaining something, you can kind of lose, you know, focus of everything that's going on. But one of the things I was thinking about today is what stands out to me is like we really have some die-hard members. And I remember when the pandemic happened,
Mhm,
we were supposed to have our big event in Dallas in 2020.
mhm,
And because of COVID, it was just bad. It was really bad in Texas.
mhm.
And we had to cancel that conference. And not only did we have to cancel the conference, we had to pivot and bring the conference online.
Mm,
And the worry was, oh my God, what if all of these people ask for a refund?
mm.
Oh my God, what if all of these sponsors say they want a refund
Right.
because, they want to carry out? But I'm like, if we have diehard members. I think only two people fussed about getting a refund. Everybody else, they were okay with our going online and having a conference because they were so diehard. And, there were a lot of organizations that did not make it out of COVID. And we were on the bubble. If our members had said, no, we have to be live. We don't want to go online. We want to like, I don't know if the organization would have emerged from that. But I'm like, when people are so committed to the work and the mission and they're okay to connect online, that's like that pivotal moment for me that stands out to me the most that they were okay to do that.
Yes. I mean, it shows the strength of the brand and also the the deep desire for connection. And I think that that was highlighted when we couldn't be together, period, right? It wasn't just we couldn't be at CCWC, we couldn't be we couldn't be together at all. And so that's a great highlight. Tell me about something else that stands out for you from the conferences over the years.
Well, all the conferences, they're great, but
Yeah.
one of the things I remember in my early days,
Mhm,
and I talk about it in the book too, is I was trying to get a trademark
mhm.
for Corporate Counsel Women of Color. And I had gone to this big muckety muck law firm to try to get them to help me get this mark.
Mhm.
And, the people who were working with me, they kept telling me, oh no, Corporate Counsel Women of Color is too descriptive. You will never get this mark. But they just kept saying, never, 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 no, no, no.
Mhm.
And I'm like, no, we're going to get a mark for Corporate Counsel Women of Color. And there was a young lady who was a lawyer in our group. She
Mhm.
was with the record studios, but then she branched out on her own, Susan Cornick.
Oh,
And Susan Cornick was an IP lawyer. And she said, don't worry, Lori, I am going to get this mark. And she got the mark. And I remember I went back to the big firm and I said, now look, I got the mark. I got the registered mark, not only for Corporate Counsel Women of Color, I got the registered mark for CCWC, and
yes.
Susan Cornick did it. And their mouths just dropped. And I said, yeah, this lawyer who did it from the kitchen of her house got it.
Mhm.
And you from the biggest firm in America, you couldn't do it. But
Yeah.
you know what? That just shows me, that just stayed with me like, Don't take no for an answer. You've got to get people who are on board with your vision. And if they're not, you have to move on. You
Woo.
may have gone to 20 other people, but
Mhm.
that 19th person may be the one who's going to help carry that ball over the field goal line. So, Susan Corney, she
Yeah.
was that person who did it. It wasn't muckety muck law firm
Yeah.
on Park Avenue that did it. And that was just such a great lesson to me. It stays with me today. When
Yes.
I'm dealing with vendors, when I'm dealing with people, this is the vision.
Mhm.
And if it's no, 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 I can't, I got to cut them to the curb and I've got to move on and find the people who can help me do it. And they're out there. That was a good lesson learned.
I love that. I love that because of the resilience. I love that because of the ability to pivot and say this, your no is not my yes is different from your no. We're gonna go this way. And I think that's a strong lesson for people to remember is that so sometimes we get so caught up in the one like direct path that we can have are focused on, and there's other ways to get to the same goal. And so that's a great lesson. And shout out to Susan. Um,
Yes. Thank you, Susan, for your perseverance.
I love that. Okay, one more thing. Tell me something that brought you extreme joy at one of these conferences.
You know, Not even at the conference,
Okay.
but I will tell you
Yeah.
what I get great joy and great pleasure from.
Okay.
We started in 2004,
Mhm.
and many of the lawyers, the women of color lawyers, they were just young lawyers
Mhm.
trying to figure it out, trying to find their way. They didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. No one knew anything, but we could rely on each other
Mhm.
to learn the strategies. How do I build my toolkit? How do I negotiate? How do I position myself? How do I brand myself?
Mhm.
And the joy that I get from our members who are now entering the C suite, not only are they rising to the level of chief legal officer of these Fortune 500 companies, but they're also getting on corporate boards.
Right. Yep.
So I get the pleasure in saying, I remember back in the day
Mhm.
when you were here trying to connect with people and you were here trying to get a mentor and you got all of that.
Yeah.
And now you are on the road to becoming the generation of the next leaders.
Mhm.
So, I mean, my joy is I see the fruit of the labor. I see the fruit of the labor by seeing that they are advancing, they're getting in the role. And I don't want us to stop there because, and I mentioned this at the last conference, as people of color start getting in those positions, they have to make sure they're not window dressing positions.
Mhm.
Have to get in that role. You have to have power, you have to have influence, you have to have a voice. So when I call you, I don't want to hear you can't hire a summer intern because you don't have a budget. You
Mhm.
should have negotiated that coming in. I don't want to hear
Mhm.
you cannot hire diverse outside counsel because you don't have the authority. Within the job, and if you're in that job with no authority,
Yeah.
no headcount, no budget, why are you there?
Mhm.
That's not what our mission was ever about. Window dressing. It's not. It's about having leaders of impact in those roles to make a difference and pay it forward.
Mm. All of that, and I mean, not I think, I know that that is the sort of underlying current of the whole conference. So for those of you who are listening who have not been to CCWC, Lori does this thing that makes everybody really uncomfortable, but we do it because we want to please her, and then we end up pleasing all of ourselves. Which is, she says, turn around at this next break and give somebody your number and tell them what you need. And I was like, my phone number. Oh. But I can tell you that just in those 2 or 3 interactions, you did one at twice in the conference and then once at the breakfast, and each of those times, the person who I connected with we needed the connection. And you
Yes.
just don't realize how magic happens when you, are a little bit brave
Mhm.
and open to what the steps are ordered for you and will do. Like, you just never know, and I'm telling you, I was like, "This is like magic." What's going on? So, you reminded me to be brave in some of those spaces. So, yeah.
It's not just brave, it's really being vulnerable.
Yes, yes,
I think
yes,
when we
yes.
when we go out into the marketplace and you talk about your brand,
Yeah.
you're putting on this brand of
Mhm.
brave, I'm smart, I'm strong. I have it going on.
Yeah.
So that's why I did the exercise. Tell someone what you need.
Mhm. Mhm.
And maybe they can help you because we're going through different things. Some people may just say, look, people on my job are acting crazy.
Yes.
I need a new job. I need to be airlifted out of there. Can you help me?
Mhm.
Oh, well, now that you mention it, we have a position that's open.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I just need some encouragement. Okay, I'll send you a song to encourage you. Hey, I'm at a law firm. I need a new client. I need a book of business. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because we're hiring diverse. Like we really just need to be specific and tell people exactly what we need and not all of this beating around the bush. And we are there to meet the need. We have the power collectively to meet every need in the room. So I'm glad that you were able to connect with the individuals, and the key is staying connected.
Yes. Yes. It is. It was fantastically magical in its execution and just in what it created. There was like a momentum in the room that you could just feel being like, "Whoa, we did get vulnerable, and it was okay. We were fine, and it probably made us better for it, as opposed to right. We were good. So,
Well,
appreciate that.
I'm curious now.
Mhm.
What did you say that you needed at the conference to those people?
So, I can tell you. So my goal for 2024 and going forward is to do more with women's groups. So I speak at law firms and I do things with corporate legal in-house departments and presentations and professional development. But I haven't tailored what I want to do for specifically women. I do it for anyone, but so this year I got onto the ABA's Commission on Women in the Profession, and I was like, I want to use this access, this status, and the things that I know to really focus on the people who I know are the changers. And I know that women are the change agents. And so that's what I said. So anybody who I spoke to, I was like, here's what I want to do. And there are 2 or 3 things that came from that, just those interactions. But what really resonates for me is that somebody who I connected with, she said, I need somebody who I can call when I'm feeling down. And I'm almost in tears, like, thinking about it because I was like, "Oh my god, you found me. All I do is cheerlead for people." And literally, right after that, I was like, "What's your number?" And to be able to say, "Hey, this is what you need." But for her to say that to someone who was a stranger was very vulnerable. And I was glad that I was the one to be able to receive that blessing from her and then give her back what she needed. So it really resonated. Hi, all. Wasn't that a fantastic conversation with Laurie Robinson Haden? I am so excited. So we're going to make that a part 1 and move on to part 2. So we're splitting this up. So if you just heard part 1, stay tuned for next week when there'll be a part 2, and you can hear the rest of our dynamic conversation with Laurie Robinson Haden talking about her new book, It's Time to Shine, as well as the impact that she has had as the CEO and founder of Corporate Counsel Women of Color, otherwise known as CCWC. See you next time for part 2 in the branding room. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Branding Room Only podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to hit subscribe to get future episodes.